Right, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Council on Thursday, the 12th of December 2024. My name is Councillor Kevin Lagan, and I'm the Chairman of the Council. Members and officers, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you're giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I'll invite you then accordingly. If referred to any agenda items, please reference a page or a paragraph number and keep your contributions as applicable to the referenced item, please. We don't have a fire alarm test planned this evening, so if the fire alarm does go off, please can we leave the chamber by one of the two exit points and muster on the grass verge by the police station. Thank you. Tara, can I have apologies for absence, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Jennings, Councillor Miller, Councillor Neal, Councillor Shaughnessy, Councillor White and Councillor Wishing. Thank you, Chairman. Thank
you very much indeed, Ms Bird. Move on to agenda item 3, which is the minutes from the 14th of November. It is recommended that the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 14th of November 2024, found on pages 5 to 12 of your agenda packs, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pratt, second. Members, can we agree that by assent?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed, members. Agenda item 4, which is declarations of interest. This is to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members, you're also reminded that you should also disclose any such interest as soon as you become aware, should you need to, throughout the meeting. Do I have any declarations, members, please? Thank you, Councillor.
Non-registered interest in the appointment of Parish Councillor, because he's on the Parish Council I'm on.
Yeah, noted. Thank you very much. Any other interests to be noted or made? No, members? Thank you very much indeed. We move to agenda item 5, which is public questions, and I can inform that we do not have any questions from the public. Agenda item 6, which is Chairperson's announcement. We have a few announcements to make this evening, members and guests. We received some sad news over recent weeks. We lost Ron Harper, who was our D-Day veteran, and he played a key part in not only the event but also a commemoration this year. It was great sadness to hear of his passing. And we're also receiving the sad news of passing of ex-councillor Sheila Young, who was aged 99. And we're flying the house flag at half-mast in tribute to Sheila until her funeral on the 20th of December. Personally, I never had the pleasure of meeting or working with Sheila, but I'll ask Councillor Durham to say a few words if he'd be kind enough in honour of Sheila. Councillor Durham.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've known Sheila and her family for many, many years. Her children were at the same primary school as I went to in Little Baddow, and when I started with Woodham Walter Parish Council in 1993, she was the district councillor representing the ward of Wickham Bishops and Woodham, and she contributed a great deal both to the parish council and obviously to this authority, and was chairman between 2008 and 2010. Sheila was a formidable woman, and I recall an occasion we went on a coach trip, and I sat with Sheila. We went on a coach trip to Leeds Castle. And as we drove through the arch into Leeds Castle, she just said to me, "I haven't been here since the war." And she said, then I was driving an ambulance, and she was a young woman at the time, and it was her job in the ambulance corps to ferry wounded officers, because there was an officers' hospital at Leeds Castle, and it was her job to ferry wounded officers from the port into Leeds Castle. And she sat and she told me a lot of very sad stories about some of the men that she met. But she was a remarkable lady, and as you've said, Chairman, lived to the ripe old age of 99. Unfortunately, she was beset with dementia more recently and passed away in a home. But she will go down, I think, Chairman, as one of the more formidable chairmen that this authority has had, and she'll be greatly missed in the village where she spent most of her latter life, and be greatly missed by a lot of people. Thank you.
Councillor Durham, thank you very much for those kind words. A life well lived. Members and guests, I'd invite everybody to stand just for a moment for quiet reflection and respect for Sheila and Ron. Thank you. Members, thank you for your cooperation. Thank you. Please be seated. Lives well lived. A couple of other notices, members. I'd just like to inform that there was a staff event yesterday which was really well attended at lunchtime. So I'd like to, again, thank everybody who was involved in putting that on from a staff perspective. And I'd also like to update the Chamber on the skatepark consultation and the award of the new facilities in Burnham and Maldon. This work was led by Melissa Curtis and a team, and I'd just like to say a huge well done on managing this project so well. Some of the interaction figures that we've had come through are amazing. We've had over 16,000 social media engagements, and the projects have been widely received across the district, and they've come with great excitement as well. So that's a fantastic tick in the box for the Section 106 and the youth facilities. And finally, members, as normal, I'm suspending the need to stand when addressing the chair. It's optional in accordance with Constitution Part 483. Finally, we've also got cards in the members' room, and Councillor Cilla Norman has addressed a card to all members and officers, which will be in the members' room later on. So I just wanted to say that that card is there for everybody to see. So thank you for everybody's kindness. We move to agenda item 7, which is the minute book, to consider any recommendations brought forward from committees as detailed on the agenda. And this is 7A, Strategy and Resources Committee, on the 21st of November 2024, which is found on pages 13 to 30. And I call upon Councillor Driver, the Vice Chairperson, to present them, please. Councillor Driver.
Thank you, Chair. I present the recommendations coming forward from the Strategy and Resources Committee on the 21st of November, which will call for consideration in relation to the fees and charges schedule 2025-26. Recommendation that, with the exception of the car parking and pontoon charges,
Councillor Driver, my apologies, we've actually changed that.
Nice to put his microphone.
You haven't got your microphone on. Thank you. Carry on.
Oh, sorry. That, with the exception of the car parking and pontoon charges in Burnham on Crouch, the detailed fees and charges schedule for 2025-26 as set out in Appendix A be agreed following the Council's approval of the fees and charges policy on the 24th of October 2024. I so move. Can I have a seconder?
Seconded by Councillor Durham. Thank you. Members, any comments, any points to make before we go? Councillor Stevens, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A few questions, if I may, please, on these. I appreciate that we're sort of not exactly rubber stamping them, so there will be I'm not trying to challenge these, but I do have some questions, if I may. So on page 13, there's a fixed penalty. I'll just run through these and then maybe somebody could pick them all up in one go. There's a fixed penalty for failure to nominate a key holder in an alarm notification area that's been removed, and I just wondered why it's been removed. Page 17, there's a £200 fee for disposing of an abandoned vehicle, and my instinct is it costs a lot more than that. So I wonder why that figure. Also on page 17, there's a £28 admin fee and a £74 administration fee right next to each other, and I wasn't sure if that was a typo or what that might be. Also page 17, a £55 charge for an abandoned shopping trolley. I wondered if that should say per trolley or per collection or something like that. Page 22, there seems to be some text missing from the Parks and Open Spaces Advertising and Sponsorship Events banners row. Page 24, it refers under Planning Development Control Section 106. It's saying that major is over 10 houses, but I think major is 10 plus houses, so that might need tweaking. Page 25, Planning Services Application Validation. It says that the fee is for reviewing application forms and charging for incorrect completion. That seems to be combining two things into one. I wonder if that's meant to be for any review or only for those with errors. It just doesn't quite hang together. And you'll be pleased to know this is the last one. Page 26, there's a fee for where residents want an enforcement notice lifted, which sort of implies that somebody can buy their way out of an enforcement, but I don't think that's probably the case. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's difficult to come back, and because the recommendation is to agree the recommendation, but those points I think should be taken on note. And if there's questions that can be answered, I don't know if there's anything specific that we can answer now. Mr. Dodson, Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, given the list that we've got, if the Chairman and members are happy, if we could take a note of all that and come back and make sure that we can improve some of the wording. I think some of it's down to formatting of the document, and just get a relevant response for each one of those. Yep. I don't think they're fundamentally material to the recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Would that be acceptable, Councillor Stevens? Thank you. Councillor Stamp, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just a little bit disappointed that we seem to be, sorry, I'm just using your, we seem to be making a substantial amount of money on plaques and anything to do with funerals and death. I understand there's costs and there's cost implications, but in difficult times, people are struggling financially at the moment, and a lot of people don't have a plan, most probably, for funeral. I mean, I think when my dad died, I think it cost us over £3,000 or £3,500, and that was only low key. So I'm a little bit concerned about the council, as I see, cashing in on memorial plaques, etc. I don't know if it's cost recovery, I can't recall, so forgive me, but I certainly won't be agreeing to those sorts of costs. And I think many other members most probably might have had some complaints if the members of the public know the increases. And I know it's inflation, etc. I understand that. But I mean, I do think we could be a little bit more generous when to deal with issues of such a delicate nature.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Thank you. Councillor Durham.
Well, Chairman, these fees and charges have been gone through by the Finance Working Group and been through Strategy and Resources, and this was discussed and this was agreed, hence it's why it's included.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Just before you come back, I'd actually make a point. It's well known when I sit on Strategy and Resources that I won't agree to those charges based on some of the issues that Councillor Stamp and other members have said. So it may have been through committees and processes, but it's down to the members individually to sit and determine whether you accept these fees and charges as is, or you want to not accept them as is. Okay, thank you. Councillor Stamp, my apologies.
Thank you. Can I come back? As I've said on more than one occasion, working groups don't make decisions, they make recommendations. Yep. And some people do not agree with the recommendations, whether they're discussed or whatever at working groups. And I think it's really important that just because a working group maybe put something forward, doesn't mean to say that this council has to agree with what that working group has put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Fluker, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was at Strategy and Resources, and I must admit, when we were talking about the parking charges in Burnham, I was somewhat surprised to hear that that proposal had been supported by the Finance Working Group, because clearly when it got to the Strategy and Resources, which I understand many members of that committee sit on the Finance Group, it was basically thrown out, for want of a better expression, and that concerns me enormously. It also concerns me enormously that perhaps those members that were directly involved with Burnham that weren't on the working groups weren't consulted. Chairman, I'm trying to take advice from what you said before, and I agree with what you say about the memorial plaques, and I know, and I remember how passionately you spoke about that Strategy and Resources, and it does sound like a huge amount of money. But for what's been said, it seems to me that if we don't agree with any part of the fees and charges, then members must vote against them all. And I think that Councillor Stevens, I think without exception, I think you picked up everything that was on my list. So I'm so pleased that I was listening to your voice rather than mine for a change. So on that basis, Chairman, I think that, you know, based on some of these fees, I can't support the whole package of fees and charges. Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you. So we've actually got a recommendation, members. There's no other hands to talk. So we've got a recommendation that has been seconded, and there is a mixed feeling in the chamber. So I'm going to call for those in favour of the recommendation. Please show your hands, please. So if we can help me count here on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 16, yeah, 16. 16's 4. So, well, that's carried then because there's, are those against? So we'll just have the count. 6, 7, 8. 8 against. Anybody abstaining? Any abstentions? 1, 2. 2 abstentions. Thank you. So that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Members, we move to agenda item 8, which is minutes of meetings of the council. These, to note, these were happened on the 6th of November, which is North Western Area Planning Committee, the 13th of November, which is South Eastern Area Planning Committee, on the 21st of November, Strategy and Resources Committee, and District Planning Committee on the 27th of November. Can they be agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you kindly. Agenda item 9, which is questions in accordance with Procedural 6.3, of which notice have been given, and I can advise members that we had not received any questions. We move to agenda item 10, which is Planning Policy Working Group review of the Maldon and Heybridge Central Area Master Plan. And this can be found in your agenda packs on page 31 to 50. And I call upon Councillor Fittick, Chairperson of the Planning Policy Working Group, to present the report, please, Councillor Fittick.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually presenting the report as such, Mrs Longworthy, but the Planning Policy Working Group was tasked with reviewing the Maldon and Heybridge Central Area Master Plan and Action Plan Supplementary Planning Document, following a motion from Councillor Stilts on the 14th December 2023. The Working Group have done that piece of work, including sites visits and walking the Master Plan areas. What the Central Area Master Plan has achieved, together with its continued mechanisms for change and delivery of objectives. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank Mrs Longman and the other officers on behalf of the PPWG for the time and effort expended on the site visits and the walkthroughs. I'm sure that my fellow members will agree it was very welcomed, informative and enlightening. I will ask Mrs Longman to take you through the review, content and conclusions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fittick. Mrs Longman, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, CAMP is an economically driven master plan with objectives to retain the market town focus of Maldon's High Street, raising the profile and investment in the district's largest employment areas at the Causeway, Heybridge, and improving the tourism offer at the district's most visited places at Hythe Quay and Promenade Park in Maldon. The master plan framework that supports the LDP policy objectives has movement and connectivity projects, brownfield development site projects, regenerative projects in tourism hotspots, and projects to manage spaces, places, car parking and traffic to access and move around the Maldon and Heybridge Central area. The master plan was adopted in 2017 and has a 10-year plus lifespan aligned with the current LDP to 2029. Paragraph 3.4.1 and Appendix 1 informed the Planning Policy Working Group of the progress of the 18 CAMP projects in the 5-year Master Plan priority programmes. So the first was in 2018 to 2023 and the current Master Plan priority programme to 2027. 5 projects were completed or are business as usual in the first 5 years, and 2 projects have been completed or are business as usual since 2023 in the current Master Plan priority programmes 2027. Appendix 2 presented 4 options to Planning Policy Working Group to consider and to inform a recommendation back to Council. Planning Policy Working Group required structured site visits to the 3 Master Plan sub-areas to understand how CAMP projects are meeting or have met the Policy S5 objectives. Paragraphs 3.4.2 to 3.4.4 and Appendix 3 set out the structure of the site visits. Paragraph 3.4.5 sets out a summary of the site visits that allowed Planning Policy Working Group to make an informed recommendation, but felt that an all-member briefing should be held on Planning Policy Working Group's review of the Central Area Master Plan prior to them reporting back to Council. That all-member briefing was held on the 16th of October. In conclusion, in paragraphs 4.1 to 4.5, delivery and progress of CAMP projects via the monitored Master Plan priority programmes are meeting LDP Policy S5 objectives. Member-led groups and the council's functions as the local planning authority for enforcement and planning ensure camp projects are visible in their progress and are a mechanism for change. Partnership working continues, ensuring camp projects remain relevant and to define the strategic context for redevelopment, regeneration and change in the area. Planning Policy Working Group will continue to review the Strategic Policy S5 objectives via the ongoing LDP review. So moving to the recommendations.
Yeah, I'll take the recommendations. Thank you, Mrs. Longman. So I've moved the two recommendations. We've got little one that the Maldon Heybridge Central Area Masterplan Action Plan work is permitted to continue until after the local development plan, the LDP review is completed. And little two, that the Maldon Heybridge Central Area Masterplan is reviewed for relevance thereafter as part of the LDP review or subsequent processes. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Members, over to you. Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, as this was my motion to council. I have read this and I do understand why this has been, but it's still, when you look at some of these pictures and you look at some of these ideas, the lower high street improvement, well, the lower high street isn't that big. So how can you make an improvement when you haven't even got that pavement in the lower high street? So I think some of these things are still just not in keeping. I think the iconic bridge is still in the master plan. And, you know, they just, certain things just are never going to happen. And when you look at what we've achieved, we've achieved, where is it? The North Quay regeneration. Well, what have we done to it? Where is our regeneration of the North Quay? So when we're looking at that, I can understand why we're keeping it going, because it's in line with the LDP and it ties up with some of the policies there, but there's still an awful lot of it that isn't right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stilts. Any other member wish to speak on this issue? Councillor Siddle, thank you.
I fully appreciate what Councillor Stilts says, and I understand that. And part of what we need to do in terms of the local plan is to ensure that we do review this and we keep the projects relevant. Some of it is dependent on people like Essex, taking that partnership and having that money to put forward some of these things. So we are limited to a certain extent. However, what I think that we need to do as a council, and it's part of what I want the council to look at next year, is to look at investing in some of these things, making sure that the Promenade Park is invested in, making sure that the High Quay is invested in, looking across the Dengie, looking across Burnham, ensuring that we use some of our reserves to make sure some of these things happen, and for us to leave a legacy in the district. And I think it's really important. If we get rid of the master plan, we have to get rid of policy S5, and that's why we're tied. But I appreciate your frustration, and I appreciate that we do need to take more action.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Any other member? Councillor Spenceley, Councillor Paula Spenceley, thank you.
So as somebody that managed to go along to 2 of the 3 visits, and the spectacular one that we had along Heybridge Creek, where I almost fell into the creek, but not quite, on the path, which is not great. I mean, I completely take on board Councillor Stilt's point that I think there are some elements. I mean, I personally can't ever see us having a connection over the creek, and I'm not sure what the point of it would be. But the reason, as I know you can see, Councillor Stilts, that we've kept this on is because of policy S5. But there is that other part of the recommendation, which is that we will re-examine all of this for the new LDP, and I think that's the important point for members to take away. And clearly there have been some improvements, because we asked, Mrs. Longman would confirm that we didn't spare any questions. That was my usual questioning self as we went round, and there was a lot of useful discussion that came out of that, and it does need a revision, but that we are being asked tonight just to support it because of that reason. So thank you.
Yep, thank you very much indeed, Councillor Spenceley. Any other member wish to speak? By the feeling in the chamber, do we agree the seconded recommendations by assent? Agreed. But any dissent? Anybody want anything recorded? No, that's passed and agreed. Tara, thank you very much indeed. We move to agenda item 11, which is the review of the Council's net zero carbon emissions trajectory and ambitions. This is found on the agenda papers on pages 51 to 58. And this is Councillor Stilts, who is chairman of the Net Zero Working Group, to present the report. Councillor Stilts, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have all got the report in front of you, but I am going to defer to Mr. Chapman to be able to explain this to members in detail.
Thank you. Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Some members will be aware that in February 2021, Maldon District Council issued a climate emergency statement. And as part of that declaration, the Council stated its ambition to be a carbon neutral district and a net zero council by 2030. Following on from this declaration, the Council produced its climate action strategy and a year later, its more detailed climate action plan. One of the key actions in this initial phase of work was to develop a roadmap to net zero for the Council and its assets. Members will then recall that in July 2024, officers presented a report on the Council's baseline carbon emissions. Those stated that in 22-23, the Council emitted 1,199 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent from its activities. Of this, approximately 45% from our leased assets, including the leisure centres, 35% from council travel, including that undertaken by our refuse and street cleansing contractors, and around 13.5% associated with the council buildings and facilities. The July report identified that to meet the stated ambition within the Climate Emergency Declaration, that significant investment in a range of technically complex decarbonisation technologies would be required and at pace. Officers raised concerns about the feasibility of such work and with regard to council resources. In response, the Council agreed the formation of a member and officer net zero working group to consider those challenges and identify and agree an appropriate strategy to progress this area of work. The Net Zero Working Group met on the 9th of September and the 15th of October and has initially focused on what measures are required for the Council itself to achieve full decarbonisation. These are started to be outlined in the report. The report identifies that there are a number of existing significant technical, structural and operational challenges that are likely to prevent us from achieving net zero by 2030. Additionally, implementation of the changes required will require investment of significant and currently unidentified resource. With regard to these challenges, the Net Zero Working Group is now recommending that Council consider amending its climate emergency statement to that presented in Appendix A. The key changes are that the Council will seek to align its ambition with that of Essex County Council and National Government, i.e. to 2050, but that it does not use this change as an excuse to delay efforts to decarbonise and that it continues to do this as soon as possible. If members are inclined to agree the amended statement, it will be necessary to review the climate action strategy so that it complements this new declaration. The intention of this work would be to develop a strategy that includes realistic and measurable milestones which would ensure we remain accountable to the public and members and businesses and clearly outlines how we will achieve the net zero target. The revised climate action strategy would be brought to Strategy and Resources Committee in the spring 25. Officers would intend to use the revision of the climate action strategy to revisit our existing pledges, our existing climate pledges, in order to make them more relatable to businesses, members and residents. And the Council's net zero milestones and the revised pledge actions would be reported in the climate action plan, which again would need to be approved by PGA. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Just like to say that a really well put together report and a very, very good presentation just now, very succinct and clear. So thank you very much indeed for that. So members, we've got 5 recommendations that are on the table. I'm going to take them on block. I'll read them out and then call for a seconder because they all link into each other. So the recommendations, 1 is that members consider and note the challenges and barriers identified by the Net Zero Working Group, which are likely to prevent the Council fully decarbonising its assets and its activities by 2030. Little 2, that with consideration of these issues and with regard to the current national and county policy agenda, the Council agrees to adopt and publish the revised climate emergency statement attached in Appendix A. Little 3, that the Climate Action Strategy 2021 to 2030 be revised to include a series of published milestones that will be set out how the council will reduce emissions as and when it is able to practically, and do so but no later than by 2050. Little 4, that officers revise the current climate pledges within the Climate Action Strategy and Climate Action Plan to ensure that they remain relevant to residents, businesses and community groups. And 5, that the revised Climate Action Strategy be brought back to the Council for consideration and adoption in spring 2025. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stilts, thank you very much. Second. Members, any comments, please? Councillor Stilts, Councillor Slam, sorry.
Two S's together.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. I actually welcome this report and a much more realistic target. It will be most probably be achieved. Essex County Council changed their date anyway, as I think we're all aware. So I think we've actually been very proactive and realistic. So yeah, I totally support this. I do agree it needs to go to PG&A. It needs to be monitored. We can't just have another talking shop. We've got to actually achieve this, and you've also got to set realistic targets and dates to be able to achieve it. It's always evolving. It was never going to be done by 2030. There was not enough information out there at the time, and it was just the latest, I can't say hype, but the latest thing that needed to be dealt with at the time without high insights or enough information being passed on. And I'm glad you're working with Essex County Council and other bodies that have got far bigger budgets than what a council of this size actually has. So yes, totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stam. Councillor Fittock.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for a matter of clarity, little 3, it says the strategy will have milestones which are critical to any project. Is that intended to be brought forward in the spring to strategy resources as part of that climate pledge document?
Thank you. Mr. Chapman, can you answer that, please?
So the Climate Action Strategy is a document that is agreed by this body, and effectively we are currently working on developing clear milestones with measurable targets across our three biggest emitters. That work is being worked through with the Net Zero Working Group, and the intention is that those would be outlined in the Climate Action Strategy going forwards, so that we are very clear with all stakeholders about what we're intending to do between now and 2050.
Thank you. That acceptable, Councillor Fittock? Yep. Councillor Nick Spenceley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with previous comments, but I would like to highlight Mr. Chapman's closing remarks that we don't use the revised date as an excuse to hold back on decarbonising our activities, because we only have to look at events around us globally and nationally and even locally to see that we do have a genuine emergency.
Yep, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Morley, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just a curiosity rather. Decarbonisation by 2050, does that mean incineration will stop as well with waste? Because that emits carbon.
Mr. Chapman, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we align with some of the Essex targets, and nationally we obviously have commitments to reduce our emissions nationally by 2050. Some of that will be through offsetting. Clearly there is an intention by Essex County Council to incinerate some waste, but obviously that is intended to be a smaller and smaller proportion of our waste as we bring a circular economy into existence between now and 2050. That work is outlined in the Essex Waste Strategy, which was brought before this council probably 2 sessions ago, and discussed at that point. Broadly speaking, some of those elements are beyond the district itself, but clearly we feed and work into that strategy alongside our partners across Essex.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, certain waste can't be incinerated. You know, we shift thousands of tons of incontinent waste and things like that. You can't recycle that. So will that be buried or incinerated?
My understanding is Essex have a broad target to put nothing into landfill by the end of their Essex Waste Strategy, and that will be for incineration. Now, as I say, that is a challenging target, but it's a secondary policy that is not the one that I've got in front of me this evening, I'm afraid. So I'm unable to talk in detail to that policy.
Yeah, I think the details in the future, isn't it? So, Councillor Siddle, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, what we're focusing on here is the net zero of Maldon District Council, not Essex County Council. So what Essex County Council do with their waste is their strategy, not ours. The difficulty we have in terms of creating net zero is the fact that we're a rural district. And one of the biggest emitters is things like our waste vehicles. And at the moment, because the technology isn't there, we can't really replace those vehicles, because it's not just about going around the district, it's taking the waste to the recycling centres. So that then adds to the journey. So until we get viable solutions for those vehicles, we are limited. However, I know from the work that we're doing on the net zero working group that if we do stay in this building, that's a decision that's got to be made. But however, we will look at making sure that this building is fit for the future and net zero, and making sure we bring those things to council for decision.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Councillor Durham.
Yeah, thank you. Just in answer to the previous question, and as it's been pointed out, Essex County Council is the body responsible for disposal of refuse, whereas Maldon District Council is responsible for its collection and indeed its recycling regime, which of course directly influences how it is disposed of. Nobody in the country will be able to put anything into landfill after 2029. Essex will be ceasing all landfill in October 2025. It has signed a contract with Endeavour for the use of the Rivenhall incinerator and all residual waste, so that's all of the black bag waste will be incinerated, so there will be zero landfill from October next year.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed for that insight. Councillor Stamp.
Councillor Spenceley would like to comment.
Councillor Spenceley, Councillor Paula Spenceley, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Chair, that to assure members, people might imagine that the Net Zero Working Group is a bit woolly, but I've got to say, of all the working groups that I've sat on, it's the most focused. The officers are absolutely amazing and should be praised, and you've picked that up from their presentation tonight. It's focused, the information we deal with is short, sharp, and we move forward. So I just want to sort of praise the officers for that and assure members that we are looking at things in a very realistic way.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you for allowing me to come back.
That's okay.
What I would actually ask is that obviously it will. You've mentioned it will come to PG&A. Can I ask that is actually coming to PG&A so we can actually mark your homework as soon as possible?
PG&A.
Based on Councillor Nick Spenceley, what he said, and he raised a very valuable point. Just because the date has been extended doesn't mean to say we can sit back on our bottoms. And I know this working group is very, very good because Jeanette Councillor Stilts gives me an update every time you've met. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. You can give some assurance to that, Mr. Chapman?
I can assure that we want a clear climate action strategy that delivers net zero, and we want it to be clear and obvious and transparent for all people that review it. So we want it to be realistic, which is why we've asked for the amendments to the climate emergency statement. But we want it to be ambitious and we want it to achieve.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Stilts, please.
Thank you. I'd actually like to thank the councillors and the officers that are on that committee for the hard work that's been put in, and to assure members that one of the things we've discussed greatly is this timeline of working for the net zero. And one of the things that we are all passionate is that we are not going to be sitting back and going, we got until 2050 to do it, because we would like to be able to get it done before that. So it's not going to be sitting there doing nothing.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I feel the mood of the chamber. So members, should we put this to a vote? Agreed by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed, members. And I'd also just like to add a caveat that there are other working groups out there, and there's some fantastic work being done by lots of other officers and lots of chairs. That's it. Other working groups are available. Yes, there's a lot. I think we underestimate, in all seriousness, sometimes the amount of good work and effort and passion that's put in by members and officers on those working groups. They can be very passionate affairs, very much so. So thank you very much indeed. We move to agenda item 12, which is the corporate plan review, which is found in your agenda papers on 59 to 88. And I'll call upon the leader of the council to present the report, please, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. As we know, in terms of the previous plan, we know the history of how that came about and how it was produced, perhaps a little bit too quickly and therefore not as effectively. And it also disabled all the new members in the last election in having a say in that corporate plan and agreeing to that corporate plan when it should have occurred after the election and not before the election. We're part way through the plan, so it's prudent to review this at this particular time. And I began a conversation with the corporate leadership team last year about how we do that and the way that we might do that and the best timing for us to ensure that that happened. And working through, because we were part way through that year, so it was not perhaps the right time to look at the corporate plan. But in the summer, what we did was we introduced the boards in the members' room where all members had those up, could put the green and red stickers, and that was the starting point to review the corporate plan. That then led, I think, to one of the best workshops we've ever had at this council. So in the July time, we had a really, really good workshop where we worked through those things and from that formulated our ideas. Subsequently, officers went through the same process at their staff meeting in September. And again, they looked at the plan and did the sticker thing. And then from that, and this is the great thing about the way we've created this plan, we've worked together in terms of both officers and members. This is going to be our plan in terms of how we move the council forward and our aims as a council. Once we'd gone through that particular process, then group leaders got together to develop and finalise that plan. And we had some really good, constructive, interesting meetings in terms of finalising those things. That then subsequently led to a briefing to all members in terms of putting forward those ideas. And one of the persons I'd really like to commend in terms of this work is Georgina Button and her team, because they have worked really, really hard in terms of getting through this plan. I've given Georgina a hard time sometimes, but I think as a result of that, we've got to a really, really good place. I should say Mrs. Button rather than Georgina.
There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can do it however you want.
So the plan now has become much more focused, and it's written in a language that anybody can understand. A resident, a man in the street, a business, all of us can really understand this. And at the heart of it is about delivering a good quality of service within the council, but also delivering a good quality of life. Maldon is where the quality of life matters. That's what we've got to compete embedding in terms of a council and making sure we create that difference. So we focus upon, and Mr. Button's going to go through the detail, but we focus on supporting our communities, investing in the district, growing our economy, protecting our environment, and delivering good quality services. And I'd now like to hand over to Mrs. Button to go into a bit more detail about that.
Thank you. Ms. Button.
Thank you for that. Yes, so the work that was done, the corporate plan was originally the 2023 to 2027 corporate plan, and it was approved back in February 2023. The plan sets out the strategic vision, priorities and objectives over that period. Activities and work delivered by officers are aligned to the corporate plan through annual service plans, which are agreed each year and are reported through our performance framework. The plan is also used as a policy framework in shaping the annual budget of the council to resource the delivery of those key priorities as identified in the plan. The corporate plan 2023 to 27 is coming to the end of its second year, as the leader has said, and it's at this midway point that it is prudent to ensure that the corporate plan continues to be relevant, the data is up to date, and it is informed by member priorities. The review of the corporate plan has been carried out jointly with members and officers through a series of review meetings that were held throughout October and November of this year. The main proposed changes requested by members have been incorporated and include a reduction from 6 priorities to 5. The priority Smarter Finances has been removed, and as our approach is to deliver effective and sustainable finances, and is set out already in the corporate plan how we work, guiding principles section on page 11 of Appendix 1, it felt it was reasonable to remove that priority. Finance performance will continue to be monitored and will be reported through the existing governance arrangements. And as the leader said, we did simplify the language used in the corporate plan. It has been simplified to help all stakeholders understand the action that the council will take and what the council's actions will achieve for us as a local authority and for the district. The date of the plan has been reset. It is now 2025 to 2028, and it is a 3-year plan. The corporate plan is evidence-based and sets out the main challenges for the district. The corporate plan can be used as a supporting document when we bid for grant funding from government and other external funding bodies, and it also helps to present our case when we're working with our colleagues at Essex County Council when we are lobbying for things like infrastructure investment and things like SEND provision, which is desperately needed. The proposed corporate plan 25 to 28 sets out revised and updated priorities, and as the leader said, they are supporting our communities, investing in our district, growing our economy, protecting our environment and delivering good quality services as set out in Appendix 1. I'm now going to hand over to Mr Wilkinson to actually set out the conclusion for this work.
Thank you, Ms Button. Mr Wilkinson.
Thank you, Ms Button. Thank you, Chairman. I don't think it leaves much for me to say, members. I think the leader and Ms Button have outlined the draft corporate plan very well. I think it's just leaves me to say that this plan sets out our strategic commitment around improving the quality of life for our residents, for people who work here and people who visit here. It sets out the priorities for the council. As Ms Button has said, it informs our service plans and it informs our budgets. And this document will give us the hooks into external funding, government grants, etc. For me, the development of this plan has been a really good process. I think that the leaders outlined all the benefits of the way that we've put this together, the involvement of members, the changes in the language so that it's user friendly for everyone, and yeah, I think it just leaves me to hand back to the chairman for the recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Wilkinson. And again, support the hard work and the thanks to Ms Button and the team for a concise and detailed, concise report this evening and the detail that you've gone into, so thank you. So we have 2 recommendations, members, to consider. The recommendation is 1, that members approve the revised corporate plan 2025 to 2028, which is attached to Appendix 1. And little 2, the members note that the corporate plan 2025 to 2028 will now be brought back to the council if there are any significant changes or new requirements to consider. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. Members?
Agreed.
Okay. Have we agreed that by assent? Councillor Stevens. That's very unusual. Yes, that doesn't happen very often. Yes, indeed. Councillor Stevens, please. Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask a question about it before?
You are absolutely allowed, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good job I never said agreed.
I'm just, so it's digital page 71, but it's slide 8 and it's headed Challenges Facing the District. And we've got housing, economy, digital exclusion, skills and education. So just taking the bottom left one there, it says the economy, and at the end it says over 85% of businesses are micro businesses employing 0 to 9 employees, which sort of coupled with the fact that it also says somewhere, or maybe just above that, that there's a low number of industrial premises and this can stifle businesses. It sounds like we've got a problem with that number, but actually nationally it's higher than 85%. It's 95%. So actually, we've not got a great problem with that, and I don't know that it is industrial premises lack of that stop businesses. It may be simply that people are quite happy with their small business and they don't want to become, sort of Mark Zuckerberg or whoever. So I just think it's a bit dangerous to put facts together like that, and then you might draw a conclusion from it that's not quite on the nail there. Okay. I think that wording needs slightly changing around to not make us sound unusual.
Okay.
And then that sort of theme carries on into the right-hand column where we've got digital exclusion, skills and education. It says we've got a lack of educational provision in the district. Well, I think our children are being educated in the district. So I get what it's attempting to say, but I just think the wording needs just tightening up a bit. There may be a difficulty in accessing education for some families, but I don't think we've got children that just can't be educated. And there are several claims on that slide particularly that I feel could be backed up with data, maybe a footnote pointing to where does this data come from and how it compares with the national picture. Because on its own, it's a bit meaningless if you know that we've got half of this, but maybe it's 3/4 nationally. You just don't know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think really the it's very subjective, isn't it? Languaging is very subjective, and I think there is data to back that up. Miss Button isn't there, so points are noted, and thank you for those. Who had their hand up as well? Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions. I've never seen it before, but an appeal's been lodged whereby the appellant is using the local plan to, I beg your pardon, the corporate plan, as a reason to add weight to their appeal. So my first question is are the policy team engaged with this plan? And there's no conflict between planning policy and the policy here, because clearly the consultant in that particular appeal thinks there is. And on page 78, what are we doing? The final bullet, delivering commercial projects that benefit the district. I mean, if we are actually delivering them, I'd be keen, and I'm sure other members would be, to hear what they are. And I'd also like to understand how this engages with the planning department, because I'm sure many members will know that, bearing in mind the south of the district is becoming a very large wine region. Somebody's brought forward a scheme to build a very large winery in the district, which would be absolutely fantastic. This would employ a lot of people. Sadly, Chairman, I have to report that the applicant has had no contact from the council since submitting their planning application for 4 weeks.
Okay, what we can do, Councillor Fluker, there's sort of things around the content and the detail within the corporate plan, and they have been noted. So I think that they're points for consideration, but not directly involved with the corporate plan review. So thank you very much indeed. Councillor Spenceley.
It was just to say to Councillor Stevens that I think the education thing is about adult education, and that we don't have any. There's a little tiny bit under the little emblem on skills and education where it says it. Just a tiny little bit on page 8.
No, that's lovely, Councillor Spenceley.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you very much.
to help members.
That's always
Thank you.
appreciated when members go through with a little laser view. Councillor Bassinger, please.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I think we can be very proud of our corporate plan, to be honest. I think it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's very legible and understandable, and anyone can read that and understand exactly who we are as a council, what we do and what we want to achieve and how we're going to achieve it. I also think, people talk about its simplicity, which I think it needs to be, but it's also a very credible document when we go out for funding and grants. So I really commend this corporate plan, and also would like to thank the team, especially Mrs. Button, for the work she's done. She's gone backwards and forwards with all our ideas, all our conflicts, all our changes, and put this together. So it's for us, it's our plan, and I think we should be very proud of it.
Thank you, Councillor Bassinger. Finally, Councillor Siddle, I believe.
So I don't know whether Ms. Button wants to come in, but on pages 70, 71, that is based on UK statistics, and if you want the information as to where that comes from, then that can be provided. So it is all statistically based. Those 2 pages are about the challenges. They're the challenges about we face. They are not our plan. That's the crucial thing to remember about those 2 pages. And the appeal that Councillor Fluker is referring to includes our old plan, not our new plan. And I think our new plan is very robust in terms of those things. We are delivering commercial projects, and if you speak to our economics officer, they will be able to provide you with all the things that we're helping deliver from a very small team. I don't know whether Mrs. Spot wants to conclude for me.
No, just to say, in terms of the corporate plan, we have a comprehensive evidence base which we keep regularly up to date. That's informed by the Office of National Statistics, NOMIS data, Skills England, by the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment that Essex County Council does. It's informed by every form of national statistic that we can feed into it. And what we have been doing is making the case with these challenges very strongly where there is those gaps. So when you talk about, when Councillor Stevens talked about the education piece, we don't have any further or higher education provision in the district, which is failing our younger people when they are moving out of the district. They're not staying and learning and getting jobs within the district, they're moving out. And so we're losing that opportunity. So what we then do is map it to government's new funding and policies and white papers, which we're doing on a daily basis at the moment. And one of those is that there is a budget for further and higher education provision to invest in capital investment. So that's when we go to Essex County Council and to government and say, we've got a need here, we've got the statistic, are we a priority for you, can we be a priority?
That's been very elegantly concluded. Thank you very much indeed. Members, do we agree the recommendations by Sen? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed, members. We move to agenda item 13, which is the council tax base. This is found on pages 89 to 96 of the agenda pack. Again, Leader of the Council to present the report, please, Richard. Hang on, Mr. Cookson's here.
So yeah, this is to agree the council tax base for the financial year 25-26 in order to our council tax requirement. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Cookson.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cookson, please.
Yes, there's not much else to say apart from the recommendation that we are to set the council tax base at 26,854. Just a little bit of background. The council tax base figure is an integral part of the calculations for setting the level of council tax, and is the number of chargeable properties adjusted for certain factors, for example, single persons discounts, local council tax support and exemptions. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, members. Any questions to Mr. Cookson? No, agreed by assent. That's agreed, please, Tara. Thank you very much indeed, members. Members, please. We move to yes, yeah. That's what we call concise and succinct. No, that's fantastic, Mr. Cookson. Thank you very much indeed. You can pop off if you like. 14, which is consultation response, which is remote attendance and proxy voting. This is found on pages 97 to 106 of your packs. And again, it's over to Councillor Siddle to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the government has put forward a consultation to seek views from councils in terms of perhaps introducing some of the things that happened during COVID to enable remote attendance of meetings in terms of ensuring that we can attend the meeting if there is a situation where we can't physically get to a committee meeting. In terms of this response, we've taken the approach that it should be under exceptional circumstances rather than being the norm. Because I think it's really, really important that as members we turn up and debate, and you can only debate in a chamber and do it effectively. However, if there was a circumstance in terms of that situation where a member couldn't get here for personal reasons or for health reasons, then I think this would still enable their participation. So we've taken that approach in terms of our consultation response. And I would like to thank Ms Holmes and Ms Hughes in terms of working with them in terms of producing this response. On proxy voting, we said no. I really do not think that's a good idea, and could be opened up to all sorts of different things. So in terms of our response to proxy voting, we decided that wouldn't be a particularly good idea. So we tried to take a very balanced approach in terms of our response to the consultation, which I hope members will support.
Thank you, Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask the leader, was it decided that even if the person attended via remotely, they still couldn't vote? So they can attend remotely, but they cannot vote on any meetings?
I think it says that in the...
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That's
I
correct.
can't remember whether it does or not.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Councillor Durham.
Chairman, I agree with the leader. I mean, our residents that vote for us have every right to think that we're going to actually turn up to meetings and to discuss the important things that are important to them. It should only be allowed in cases of a national emergency, such as we saw during COVID. Absolutely, there should be no proxy voting. Absolutely, there should be no voting by virtual attendance. Virtual attendance, for a lot of reasons, can be understood because we all have issues every now and again, but certainly not to carry a vote. So I would support the leader's proposition.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On page 103, question 7, do you think there are any necessary procedural measures that would help? I think we've got a glitch in the response because at the very end it says private meetings should not be done in a private location. I think probably the not should go. But I'd extend that really, that if you're, I think that any meeting that should be attended in a public location only if other people in that location consent to it. Because I might think, oh, well, this is a public meeting, so anyone, but somebody behind me, I don't know where I might be, but somebody behind me might not want to be on that video and in that meeting. Page 104.
Can I just?
Yeah, Richard.
I think that should actually say we should also look up to a code of conduct to say private meetings should not be done in a public location.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So that's what it needs to be amended to, and that's what we said when we had the meeting, that it's private meetings should not be held in a they should be there in the public. They should be in a private place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean at the moment it says should not be. It's double.
Yeah,
that can be amended. Though,
Anyway, on the next page, in section 8, I don't know what they were expecting from us, but it seems that we've contradicted ourselves because we've said remote attendance. We've ticked all the boxes for why it should be considered, and then we've ticked all the boxes about why it should not be considered. And then their own question is a bit wrong, I think, because under the reasons why it should not be considered, they ask us to add any other reasons that it should be considered, when I'm sure that should say that it should not be considered. And that's how we've answered it. But I think it would be worthwhile stating in our answer, we assume what you meant to ask us was the opposite to what you did ask us. I just think something's wrong there. And just generally thinking about this exceptional circumstances, I mean, obviously something like COVID, yes, that's exceptional. If we had a member with disabilities who quite regularly, or quite often, should we say, wasn't able to come, their residents have voted them in knowing that they've got those disabilities and that sometimes they might not be able to do things that other people could do. So for them, living in that way, that's not exceptional, that's every day for them. Every single day they've got to work that bit harder than anyone else has got to, just to get around. And I'd have thought if we had a member with disabilities that quite often might not be able to make it into the chamber, that we ought to be making arrangements for them. And this would be a golden opportunity to do that. But if we say to them, oh, well, you can only duck out of coming in occasionally, and then when you do, you can't vote, we seem to be cancelling them. I don't know if any other members are concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think they're good points. Members and the monitoring officers have noted the changes, and we'll make those changes into the document. But remember, members, that every member has the opportunity to go in and individually respond. Okay, so myself has done that, so that's a good thing. So members, I've got no more. Councillor Stamp, my apologies.
Thank you. Can I just ask you can point it out to us where it actually says that a member can't vote remotely? Which part? Because I've looked through it and I can't see it. I know I'm often miss things, so forgive me.
I think it was remote. Is it proxy voting? Was it proxy voting? No. No, proxy somebody else having it, but voting remotely is not here. I don't think it does. It say that in there? It doesn't say it.
No.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't say it. And I remember when I asked, because there isn't a question on that, and there isn't a question there. So if that's something that the council feels, because there isn't a question that says you can attend remotely, but you're not allowed to vote. Because what it's implying is you can attend remotely and still vote. But if council wants to put that in and change it, then we can put forward that tonight. As to whether we want to put that forward in terms of a comment and a recommendation.
Can I come back? Because that's what was agreed at the leaders' meetings. That was what was agreed. So it needs to be put in here, and any other amendment, if everybody feels like.
So do you want to just spell out your amendment so that we can put it, because we haven't put the recommendations yet, so we can put that as part of the recommendation.
I think it's Councillor Stilts who raised
Councillor
it.
Stints, please.
Thank you. Yeah, my recommendation would be that a member can attend remotely, but they can't vote.
Seconded.
And is that seconded? Seconded by Councillor Morgan. Members, is that agreed? That addition? Okay, thank you. So you okay with that? Yep. So with that amendment, the recommendation that I put to members is that with that amendment, the council endorses the draft consultation response Appendix A with that recommendation. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Members, you agree with that by assent?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for going through these papers with such detail, because it's really important. Thank you.
People have called out agreed. There's been no count of how many people agreed. There wasn't. Does anybody disagree that? There could have been just as many loud voices
with respect,
on disagree.
you can pick up the mood of champion. You can watch body language. So, and we've moved on. We've passed that motion, so we'll move on to number 15. Thank you, which is a waste contract task and finish group. This is member attendance. So this is the waste contract task and finish member group, which is found on pages 107 and 108. And again, the leader to present the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. So the waste contract group has been a task and finish, but it has met whenever it's needed to in terms of the situation. However, I'm not quite sure why, but it's only ever had 4 members. And in terms of its importance, it's probably the most important contract that we've got. I don't really know why it was only 4 members. So the reason why we brought this particular paper is to expand the member representation. There isn't a specific number that we're expanding it to. So we're looking for nominations for this. And then once we've done that, we can discuss who it might be. I'll hand over to Mrs. Wheatley to go into a bit more detail.
Okay, Ms.
Good
Wheatley.
evening.
Evening.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. As part of the 25-26 budget setting process, a number of savings proposals are presented to the Finance Working Group for consideration. There were a couple of changes proposed for waste services which needed further analysis to establish their viability. Members agreed to reinstate the contract waste contract task and finish group to do this, and the first task and finish group meeting was held on the 26th of November 2024. There were 5 officers in attendance at this meeting, but only 2 members were able to attend. With 4 member representatives currently nominated to attend this group, it doesn't meet quorum if 2 or more members are unable to attend. This report therefore requests for Council to approve 2 or more additional members to join the waste contract task and finish group effective from January 2025. By having additional members on this group, it will ensure that the waste contract task and finish group achieves quorum for these meetings and is more effective when debating and assessing the changes being proposed for waste services. Thank you.
Ms. Wheatley, thank you very much indeed. So I'll just put the recommendations members first, and then we can start to get into the debate. The recommendations, little 1, are that the council agrees to expand the member representation on the waste contract task and finish group. So the report obviously suggests 2 or more members. And little 2, that the additional member representatives are confirmed by the council ahead of the next waste contract task and finish group, date to be confirmed, which is in January 2025. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pratt, thank you very much indeed. Right, several hands went up. So Councillor Fluker first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was at the meeting of the 26th, and as much as I don't mind spending the afternoon in the company of the leader, it was a tad sparse. I think members need to understand that there is an opportunity to send substitutes to these meetings, and I was surprised really with what was on the agenda, and I think it's very, very important that we do bolster this up. And Chairman, I'm sure you've got a list somewhere, but and I hope it doesn't conflict with anything, but you know, I would propose, Chairman, Councillor Morley joins, because he's got a huge amount of experience in waste, and I've heard several people call him a wastrel as well. Thank you.
So Councillor Stamp next, Councillor Morgan. Yeah, I'll come back to that.
I'll second that
You're
proposal.
second Councillor Morgan. So Councillor Morgan, you're on the table at the moment. Thank you.
Is on the table?
Morley, sorry.
Oh. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Councillor Stilts, please. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Stilts? Thank you.
Councillor Stilts, who seconded that? You did that. Yeah. Councillor Hayward, thank you very much indeed. Any other members? Councillor Durham, please.
Chairman, I'm going to put Councillor Driver on the spot because today I stood down as the district representative on the Essex Waste Partnership Board, and he is taking over from me with the from the next meeting. It would make sense if Councillor Driver wants to. It will give him increased knowledge of the waste situation going to the waste partnership boards. But I'm sorry, John, I didn't.
Chair, I was about to nominate Councillor Paula Spenceley, since we talked about it beforehand, but.
There's two. With respect, it's two or more. So there is an opportunity. So if you're acceptable to that, Councillor Driver, and it's seconded.
Yeah, I'm acceptable to that. But I will.
Seconded by Councillor Burwood.
And I will recommend propose Councillor Paula Spenceley.
Councillor Paula Spenceley. Okay, that's seconded by Councillor Burwood. So members. Yep. Yes, leader.
So one of the things I would suggest is that we make this politically balanced and therefore have equal representation across groups, and also a non-aligned on the working group as well. So at the moment we would end up with having 3 Conservatives, 2 DSG, 2 Liberal Democrats, 1 from the Maldon District Independent Group, and no non-aligned at the moment. So I will nominate Councillor Lay, and I would also like to nominate Councillor Stevens from the DSG, from the MDIG even. Brain's gone. Brain's gone.
We're going to have everybody. Can I just interject? Whilst I understand the political balance, I don't see any point in having the political balance and moving people who want to volunteer. I run a contract in the past as a waste manager for a local authority. I don't want to be on it, but I have a skill set. But I think we get too wrapped up in political fervour sometimes.
I'm concerned that the group's going to get too large.
Well, I think if we had it, I think if we members are happy with the 4 members who are on there, and there's an opportunity for some substitutes, I mean, I think that's more. So we've got another 4 people to put on. So if you only have 2 turn up, we've got a plethora of people, because otherwise we're going to end up making the group far too big. You know, it's my opinion on it. Is that sorry, Councillor Stilts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like how our group lost a member on that. So it went down to 1. So I don't think it should be politically balanced. I think that it's not a political thing. It's a waste contract, task and finish working group. So I don't think it should be politically balanced.
Well, I think, again, with members, we had Councillor Morley, with Councillor Stilts, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Driver, and Councillor Spenceley. So that seemed we've got. They weren't seconded.
They were.
Were they?
Yeah.
Can you confirm that? Yeah. Are you both of you agreeing to go onto the working group? Okay, members, we have one of the world's biggest working groups. So we will say, do council agree? Those additional members to go onto the working group, please? Would anybody not agree to that? So that's agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, members, and thank you for stepping up to the contract. Working group. Waste is very, very, very interesting. Far more interesting than a lot of people think. Okay, so we now move on to agenda item 16, which is the appointment of parish.
Chairman, before you move, members just need to agree the other recommendation, please.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, that's good. Recommendation little 2, the additional member representatives are confirmed by the council ahead of the next waste contract and a finish group, task and finish group date to be confirmed in January 2025. My apologies. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed, members. We do now move on to agenda item 16, which is the appointment of parish councillors to the Joint Standards Committee found on pages 109 and 110. Leader. Oh.
The council has to appoint one of 2 candidates to the Joint Standards Committee for the remaining municipal year. Those 2 candidates, this is as a result of the resignation of Councillor Peter Davey from Althorn Parish Council. We have 2 parish councillors who put their names forward. They are Councillor Mike Hall, and Councillor Robert Harding, and information on those was circulated before the meeting.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have a recommendation, members, that the council appoints one of the 2 candidates to the Joint Standards Committee for the remaining municipal year. I so move. Is that seconded? Yeah. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Stamp, please. So we have 2 candidates, as the leader has said. So we've got Councillor Mike Hall from Heybridge Parish Council, and Councillor Robert Harding from Mayland Parish Council. Anybody wish to comment on either of those 2 applicants? Councillor Stamp, please, and Councillor Bown.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Robert Harding, please. I know the person and I think they'd be very good on this committee.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Bown.
Well, I don't know either, but it's just I look reading the synopsis of them, that Councillor Hall, to me, what he's done, yes, happy with that. I don't know Robert Harding. He served on a parish council from 22 January to April 23, and then again from 24. I'm not sure what happened in those few months.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Well, members, it's a simple vote for, and the majority will be carried. So may I ask members to clearly show their hands for Councillor Mike Hall, please. Okay, here we go. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Can you help us now? You got 14. Just got 14. So we've got 14 for Councillor Hall. Members, could you please show for Councillor Robert Harding, please, members? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a 7. Yep. So, members, thank you very much indeed. So I can confirm that Councillor Mike Hall is appointed to the Joint Standards Committee for the remainder of the municipal year. Thank you very much indeed. We move to agenda item 17, which is schedule of meetings, which is found on pages 111 to 114, and this is for the 25 to 26. And I call upon the Chief Executive, Mr. Wilkinson, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, this report sets out the schedule of meetings for the 2025-26 municipal year and is presented for Council's consideration.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Wilkinson. We have one recommendation that the schedule of meetings for the 25-26 municipal year be approved as set out in Appendix 1. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Durham. Members who agree by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. We move to 18, which is the 2024-25 schedule of meetings. And this is found on page agenda item 3, and the council is asked to consider moving the Performance Governance and Audit Committee meeting scheduled for Thursday the 6th of March 2025 to Thursday the 20th of February 2024. This request is to allow the committee to meet its deadlines regarding the 2023 accounts. Do I have a seconder?
Can I just clarify? You said 13. I think it's item 18.
18. My apologies. Item 18. So, okay, members, are you clear with that? What we're debating here, to move the PGNA to Thursday the 6th of March 2025 to Thursday the 20th of February 2024, and the reasons why. I so move. Agreed. 25. Yep. There is typo on there, my apologies. So we change it to 2025, which makes perfect sense because we can't go back in time. Councillor Stamp.
Forgive me and correct me. Did I know about this? Have I received an email as chair of PGNA that this committee was asked to be moved?
Only you can answer that. So I take it that you haven't.
I don't know. I can't find it. I've only got it in my diary. I've in my diary for the initial date, so I haven't been informed of it, which I would expect to be as the chair of that committee.
That's a fair point, well back. But members, do you agree to support that change? Anybody disagree? Excellent, thank you very much indeed. Members, we move on to agenda item 19, and this is questions to the Leader of the Council in accordance with Procedure Rule 13M. Any questions to the Leader this evening, please? Councillor Stamp. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Would you like
Thank
to
you. I have two questions to the Leader. Sorry I haven't briefed you on them. The first one is, does the Leader agree with me, and would he like to thank the team, the finance team, for producing and finalising and signing off 21-22 and 22-23 years accounts 2 days ago, I think it was, wasn't it, Mr Cookson, when we did the electronic signature, and we've all completed them as the external auditors. So I'm very proud of the team to do that. They worked damned hard to be able to bring those to fruition. We know it's going to be disclaimed accounts and a statement that's been done, but I'd personally like to thank everybody, and I know I've sent an email and so have you, but if you'd like to do that so it's recorded in the minutes, and then I will ask the second question.
Thank you, Leader.
I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Stamp, and I would like to thank the finance team for getting us up to date and getting those accounts signed off. It's really good, great work. And Mr Cookson has come in and very quickly got to grips with things and turned that around, which is very, very good. So thank you to the whole team.
Here, thank you. Councillor Stamp, the second question.
The second question is, the working group for the car parking charges for Burnham on Crouch, would he agree with me? I hope he does when he listens to my points being made. There is a lack of consultation regarding local businesses, sports clubs within the town when these costs were put forward to this council. Whether they came to the finance working group, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant. No consultation has been done regarding the town. Don't forget, when you come to Burnham on Crouch, people come for tourism and free parking. We don't have the facilities that Maldon has, Prom has. They've got far more facilities. They get far more investment for 106 money. And what I'd like to say is, listening to the corporate plan, when we're supposed to be enhancing the economy of our areas and our district, I would like to put it on record. You bring parking charges to Burnham on Crouch, and you will not grow our economy. You will stop it growing. In fact, it will have a retrograde step. So I'd like that minuted quite clearly, that I think we need to do some consultation, because it will do the opposite of what we've actually said tonight in the corporate plan. So a one-word answer. Do you agree, yes or no, about the consultation or lack of it within the town of Burnham on Crouch? Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, it's very important to take into account members of the public's opinions when we make decisions, and businesses, of course. And if you remember, at Strategy and Resources, it was myself who put forward the recommendation to delay those fees and charges for further consideration. If that further consideration and the finance members group and the car parking group decide that they perhaps want to go out to a wider consultation, then I'm more than happy to support that. What we need to do is to ensure that we do things in a fair way across the whole of the district, and it's trying to find that balance. I noticed there was some things in the media about a particular car park. In terms of that, no decision has been made about any of those car parks, and until we make those decisions, and that's why I referred it to come back to full council to make a decision, rather than it being just Strategy and Resources that made that decision for a full briefing. So I think we need to ensure that we look at what we're doing, we look at how we do things, and if that means we go out and consult with the residents, or that we'll do a wider consultation across members, I'm flexible and I'm quite happy to look at different things. So at the moment, no decision has been made, and until we bring those things forward, then that's the time that those decisions will be made. So if it means that we go out to consult with Burnham, or we look at the reasons why we might do it, or we look at being flexible in terms of that charging, doing 1 hour free and then charging after that, those are the sort of things that we can look at in terms of what we might do. And at the moment, we need to have more detail about what we might do before we make the decision.
Thank you. Councillor Fluke, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm slightly confused because the details of these things is supposed to be in the working group, and then the detail is then taken to the council committees. Chairman, at the last Strategy and Resources, I beg your pardon, Leader, at the last Strategy and Resources Committee, when advocating introducing parking charges in Burnham, you said, and I quote from the tape, if the car parks are not being used, are not needed or required, then the council should look at utilising the land and perhaps turning it into housing. Leader, for the benefit of the residents of Millfields, I beg your pardon, for the comfort or otherwise of the residents of Millfields who are incredibly concerned about these comments, do you still stand by your comment?
Thank you, Councillor.
That comment was a response to another comment that was made during that meeting. So a particular member of Burnham said, and they corrected what they said afterwards, but the particular member from Burnham said that the car parks aren't used, and that's what I based that on. And I was interested when that comment was made. So can I finish?
Please. Thank you.
So that's why I made that response. Yeah, there are no plans for that, and it's not the sort of thing we would be looking at anyway. It was just a response to a statement. We all make responses to statement, Councillor Fluker, as you know from your own personal experience.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cyril Norman, thank you.
Thank you. Does the leader realise that the actual car park is not a shop? Well, it is said it's a shopper's car park, but it isn't. It's for the doctors. Has the Maldon doctors got surgeries got car parks? If they have, and I think Burnham's doctor's car park, which is now been told to me is a shopper's car park. No, it's a doctor's car park. We have to have parking for people to go into the surgery. Are you aware of that?
Thank you.
Please, Leader.
Yes, I am aware of that, and I don't think at any particular point that's been labelled a shopper's car park. Yeah, we recognise that it is a doctor's car park. The doctor's car park is owned by the council, and we have to pay to maintain that. Again, we can be one of the things as we develop these policies, and this is what this is about. It's about developing policies, working out what we do as a council. And we haven't made that decision yet, and it will be down to, I have no statutory powers, as everybody knows. So it will be down to council to make that decision once it's been finalised. And if that means we go out to consultation, or we take these things back, we look at it in more detail, then those are the sort of things that the car parking group will do. I've not been able to attend all of those, unfortunately, but those are the sort of things that that group will look at and make decisions on. So at the moment, nothing has been decided.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leader, can you agree with me that we should be thanking the volunteers that work tirelessly to look after our cemeteries, and they are volunteers, and planting 30 trees after all those high winds and making our cemeteries look pleasant? Can we thank those volunteers publicly, because they feel that they are not being thanked for the work they are doing?
Thank you.
I know Councillor Stilts mentioned this to me early in the day, and I think it is unfortunate that we take people who are volunteers for granted, and we should never do that as councillors and as a council. So I think it's really, really important that we thank those volunteers for help us looking after the cemeteries and those spaces. If we need to do a further thanking or give them some kind of recognition, I'm sure officers will look into doing that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durham, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Siddle, our new Labour government is the gift that keeps giving, and today it gave us the NPPF, which is going to dramatically change the content of our LDP, place onerous targets on us. So my question in respect of the NPPF changes, I take it that the LDP working group is going to work through that and the implications of that. But next Tuesday sees the publication of the devolution white paper, and then followed a couple of days later, I'm told, by it's coming, Councillor Fluker. Thank you very much. Okay.
Let's be respectful of each other.
We have the devolution white paper. We know that this government wants local government reform. It wants mayors and unitaries by the end of this parliament. There's a very good chance that it will be earlier than that. Can the leader tell me that allowance has been made in the corporate plan and other documents if next week there is a plan for Essex to go ahead of the pack for local government reform?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. So firstly, you may not have heard this, but at 5 o'clock this afternoon on BBC Essex, I was quoted because I thought it was important to get a message out from Maldon District Council. And my full message, which went out, was I am extremely disappointed to see that the housing target, which has been imposed on the district as part of the government's national planning policy framework, has been dramatically increased. The council is reflecting on the impact it will have on the local community, on our local plan, which is currently being developed. We continue to work closely with Essex County Council and our partners to ensure that the infrastructure is delivered now and in the future. I am extremely disappointed, and I'm also extremely disappointed for all Essex councils and also councils across the country. Ours has been doubled. As a total, the number of houses that Essex will have to build is going from 7,000 to 14,000 houses a year. This will put extreme pressure on all of us and all authorities across the council. I'm on the DCN executive, and as part of that, we've been talking about these things. There are some councils in Surrey that have no land to build these houses. They're not going to be able to do it at all because of the nature of where they are. So we've tried, and they've ignored our consultation, basically, and they've made it worse. Our target has gone up. In terms of local government reform, again, the DCN executive, we had a meeting about it last week. In terms of that, our view in terms of what might be chosen is we're probably a bit more negative about it than we were before. What we need to do, and one of the things that I think is really, really important, what I've been saying at Essex Leaders and at North Essex Leaders and at the DCN, is that any local government reform has to be based on locality, has to reflect what it means to residents. And that's what I shall be pushing for if this happens, is that we have an authority, or we have an area which relates to us and relates to residents that they can understand. And one of the things that I think we've got to be really, really careful of is if these unitary authorities become too big. Because we just lose that disconnect completely. So we need to ensure that they're the right size, and then we're not having these monolithic authorities where people are completely disconnected, and it relates to who we are. We need to look at, in terms of, if this happens, and we don't know what's going to happen, but if this happens, who we might be a unitary with. And that's really, really important, and I hope that all members get involved in those discussions and those as that works forward.
No, thank you very much. We've got further questions. Thank you. Councillor Paula Spenceley.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, you will recall at our last meeting we had some of my residents here asking public questions. And I haven't warned you of this question because I was determined to ask it publicly tonight, because I want my residents to understand that this council has not forgotten them. This week, the headmistress of the Heybridge Primary School sent emails out to all parents, because now we have not only the danger on Broad Street Green Road, but with so many cars going to the school because the children are unable to walk there safely, they are now frightened about an accident happening outside the school. I would therefore ask, and I appreciate you may not be able to do it here, that you update me along with officers on exactly what progress we've made with regard to safety improvements with Essex Highways on Broad Street Green Road, so that I can provide my residents with a very welcome Christmas gift of some news that we will hopefully have something for them next year, so that they don't have to face this trauma every school day. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, so the time is 15 minutes and that is up. That would have to be a written response.
Just very quickly.
That'll have to be a written response. Okay. Thank you. So we'll stick in time with the Constitution. Thank you. Thank members for everybody's questions. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 20, which is urgent business that the chairman decides are urgent. Unusual. I have two items of business that I've put onto the agenda this evening. One of them, just to allow the CEO, Mr. Wilkinson, just to make a quick statement on something that was said earlier on. Mr. Wilkinson, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just to add some comments to Councillor Durham on the question and response from the leader in relation to the corporate plan, which members have just agreed. The recommendation 2 actually says that members to note that the corporate plan 25-26 will be brought back to this council if there are any significant changes. Yep. So just to remind...
I think that needed clarification, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
The other urgent item of business is a rather pleasurable but sad moment. So I know how Mr. Holmes has looked forward to this since he's walked into the chamber, bursting with enthusiasm. But members, I thought it would be right and applicable to give members the opportunity to make any addresses to Mr. Holmes that they wish to do. So Councillor Durham's first, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I wasn't expecting it, but Mr. Holmes and I have been sort of hand in glove for quite a few years as I chaired the Community Services Committee and the things that I've done since. Mr. Holmes is literally Mr. Maldon. You know, he's been at this authority his entire working life, and I very much, doubt that can be said of pretty much any other officer around the country. It's very, very rare. And Mr. Holmes has always been there when I've needed help, assistance and advice. And we work very closely together. And we've had one or two little situations, haven't we, Richard? But we've managed to work them through. And really, as I said, I cannot speak highly enough of Richard, and we will miss him. And we're unlikely to see the like of a man like Richard again in this authority.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Like Councillor Durham, Chairman, I was chair of Community Services. On the leisure services, we had the contract. And Richard is such a wealth of knowledge, with the added advantage that I have his mobile phone number stored in my phone. And if someone rings me and says, what do I do because I've got a flood? The first thing I used to do was ring Richard, who answered and sorted it out. So thank you, Richard. I just hope that the CEO is going to give me his phone number so that I can call him. But we are going to miss you, Richard. You've done a fantastic job. I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Durham. I don't want to see you cry, so I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. I worked very closely with Mr. Holmes and indeed Mr. Dodson for 3 years when I was leader of the council, and I think that during that period we probably had to make some of the most difficult decisions ever. One of them when we had to take this council into emergency measures and turn it down because of the COVID pandemic. And throughout that period, Mr. Holmes, and I'll do it once in this chamber, Richard gave me so much support and guidance, and for us to be confronted with an emergency burial plan for the Promenade Park, I hope nobody else has to do that. And the next item on the list was, where do we get the body bags and how are we going to do this? And it was absolutely extraordinary. And I would always be very, very grateful for Mr. Holmes' support during that period. And I know what he'll be doing. He'll go off now and tinker with his Series 1 Land Rover. Some people may have his telephone number. I've got his personal email address. And it makes reference to a Series 1 Land Rover. So I wish him very well, and I wish him for a long and happy retirement. And I'm sure everybody else join me in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I did a bit of this at CLT Connects a couple of weeks ago with all officers, and some of the members were there. And all I can say is we were at school together. No, we were in the same year at school, but we didn't know each other. But my first encounter of Mr. Holmes was on election night in 2019, when all of a sudden my counts for Great Totham went horribly wrong. And I was, no, stop, these numbers are wrong. And the person who leapt to deal with it was Mr. Holmes. And I thought, he's all right. I don't know who he is, but he seems all right. And that's what I'd say is Mr. Holmes is all right. And thank you so much for everything you've done for Maldon and the district.
Mr. Holmes, the chamber is yours. Come on.
Well, firstly, thank you for those kind words, members. It's very much appreciated. And I hate being in the spotlight, as you probably know. And as Mr. Dodson found out and said earlier, he couldn't find any photographs of me over my career, and that was by design, not accident. Looking at those boards on the wall behind there, I had the privilege to work with, I think, all but one chair and one leader of the council. So everybody on that list I've had the pleasure of working to, and we've built relationships and we've got through what we needed to do through that period of time, and have been some really tough times. And this council has had to deal with some really difficult things in its past. I won't pull out any particular names on there, but there were two members on there I could always be grateful for the support they gave me, particularly during that 2002 to 2006 period. And if you look up the history book, you'll know why it was such a dramatic time and the changes we went through. And I was at the front of that, and I got absolute 100% support from the chairman at the time and the leaders of the council. So that I will never forget. It's been a privilege. It's been a long time. It is time to move on. And I guess I'd say thank you for your support. And I also will say, as the outgoing head of paid service, don't forget you have a fantastic workforce, a loyal workforce, and I've never come across a group of people who care so much about the district that they work for. And I think that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Thank you, Richard. That's, I think also, by looking at the sentiments that are in the cards and the sentiments that came out of that, you can see how highly valued and thought of you actually are, not were, are. So on behalf of the council, thank you. And I just want to share, somebody said he's going to bring his vehicle down to the VE day, and I'm thinking, you've got a white Focus. And I thought, what do you want to bring that for? You'll understand. Come on. Okay. So we now move to close the meeting, members. Members, thank you so much for all your contributions this evening. It's been a long meeting, but it was a big agenda. We've got through it very, very well. We've made some very good decisions, and I appreciate your commitments and your contributions. So I'm pleased to say that this meeting is closed at 21:11. Please travel carefully and travel safely when you go home, and a very happy Christmas to everybody. Thank you.